Good day. This is the second episode of Beyond the Fog podcast. First, a small side note. As indicated in the feedback that I got from the first episode, the preferred length of the episode is about 30 minutes, so that is what I would try to stick with for this and following episodes. Now to the episode itself. Businesses right now are racing to replace human interactions with chatbots and automated systems. But how well does it work with what customers expect? To understand this, we would be looking at Qualtrics Consumer Trends Report 2024 and break down three major tensions in customer experience and probable practical solutions. But first, let's understand who we are dealing with. Qualtrics is a US-based company based on focusing on managing customer experience. They produced specialized software for that. They have all sorts of advice and consultations on those topics. So this is their field of expertise. The methodology for the report is fairly straightforward. They have created an online survey and collected responses from 28,400 consumers in 26 countries in different regions: South America, Northern America, Asia, Europe, Middle East, which makes me to believe that the results are global and would matter for your business no matter where you are. The first tension they indicated is the gap between AI implementations by the companies and customers wishing for human interaction, for human connection. Essentially, despite the huge investments that different companies are making into AI, most consumers are still on the fence, and only 48% of consumers actually comfortable interacting with an AI brought forward by the companies, and only 38% would actually prefer digital interaction as such. There are three main reasons for that, three main concerns that consumers have: lack of a human to connect to, poor quality of the interaction, and lastly, loss of jobs for employees. I was expecting the first two. I was slightly surprised by how high loss of jobs rated. Consumers usually aren't that focused on the employees of the business they are dealing with, but on the other hand, if you think about it, it makes total sense because all consumers are employees in some other companies that are likely to employ the same strategies. I believe this is a valid concern, but tend to think we should be fine on that front. And I can explain why I believe so. All in all, there are three types of innovations: empowering innovation or market creating innovations. This type of innovation transforms complicated, expensive product into simple and affordable one. For example, early automobiles were expensive to buy, expensive to maintain, very few people could afford them. But Ford made automobiles affordable and created a huge market. And in a sense, he supported multiple other markets. For example, steel producers. Early computers were also very large, complicated, very costly, millions of dollars. But personal computers and smartphones became 1,000 times cheaper, created a huge markets of their own, and even a few subsidiary markets, let's say smartphone applications. This type of innovation is known to create most of the jobs in the economy, but the downside, sort of, is that it requires significant initial capital investment, at least usually, and tends to have long cycle of recouping those investments. Sustaining innovations make good product better. This is kind of the second step in this cycle. This is the most common type of innovation, and this is replacement oriented. For this reason, it creates few, if any, jobs and is neutral in terms of capital. Easy example is to buy, let's say, a new iPhone or new Samsung phone. Each of them have incremental improvement compared to the previous one, and is mainly just replacing one after another without significantly changing the product itself. The third type are efficiency innovations that enable businesses to offer the same product cheaper for existing customers. By its very nature, they reduce the number of jobs and free up capital. Let's say Toyota reducing the time required to assemble a car from 60 days to 2.5 days is one such innovation. They are very important too, though, because this is a part of what enabled Toyota to outcompete US car manufacturers. So you shouldn't discount them or try to avoid them. So when we are talking about loss of jobs, we have to assume that AI would fall under efficiency innovations. But I don't think that this conclusion stands any scrutiny. So let's first discuss where should we put AI, under which category. This is sort of a trick question, because AI actually is not a singular monolithic innovation. Instead, it's a series of interconnected innovations, and although they all fall under the same umbrella, each of them would fall into a different category in terms of what type of innovation they are. The same way as electronics as in general is not a single innovation. You cannot just put it one place or another, and neither is AI. And while some of these AI innovations, products, would fall under sustaining or efficiency category, the most important ones, I think, are under empowering innovations. For example, large language models and generative AI, more broadly, makes capabilities previously limited to experts available to everyone. The costs of access just drops significantly. New markets and new use cases emerge. And yes, indeed, existing professionals use it, and it makes them more efficient. And in that sense, I understand why people might want to put AI under efficiency category, but this is not really what's important here. efficiency gains to those who already had access to these capabilities pale in comparison to many new people getting the same access for the first time. For example, small businesses can now access enterprise level capabilities. So in this sense and under this framework, I believe that the most important AI innovations would fall under empowering innovations, and as a consequence, the net result of AI as a thing is not decreasing jobs, it instead increasing them. That said, it's true that some jobs might become obsolete, but there is little we can do about it. Well, first of all, you cannot just uninvent things. However, you could stretch it over time by government intervention, but that's about it. No matter what you do, lamplighters, switchboard operators, typewriter technicians, ice cutters were bound to disappear, and historically did disappear. But there is a third category where people might feel that these jobs are threatened by AI. They would actually just change, not disappear. As taxi drivers were using horses in 1900 and now they use cars, but the core of the job is the same. Similar thing would happen to many other jobs now. And as I said, many new jobs would emerge, and actually already emerging. Somewhat funny, but still it's factually correct that there is a new sort of job emerged, which is prompt engineer. Essentially a person who helps companies or people, but since we are talking about jobs, helps companies to engineer sophisticated prompts to AI to get the most of them, from using maybe less structured information but still gaining useful results, to getting significantly more useful results than would be possible on average. So I think we can say that this concern, while valid, could be easily counted. The other two concerns, which is lack of a human to connect to and poor quality of the interactions, we would have to, discussing them, we would have to consider why businesses are actually trying to automate and to introduce artificial intelligence. Is it simply because they can, because it's fashionable, or because they should in some cases do that? And ask yourself in parallel, when was the last time that you personally had a truly satisfying digital support experience, for example? My point here is that organizations must understand customer needs, preferences, and perceptions, and then offer experience that match that expectation. If you can automate a certain interaction, but that goes counter to customers' preferences, then you are just doing a fool's errand, something that you shouldn't do. Maybe avoid it altogether. This understanding will help you determine if the experience should be AI-enabled, human-enabled, or human supported by AI in the background. And for this purpose, you might want to delegate some routine tasks to an AI, After all, 54% of consumers prefer to get something like status of an order via digital channel, and 62% are okay with booking a ticket using AI, but high stakes interactions, such as resolving an issue with a bill, for example, are best left to humans, both from preference and customer preference and risk management perspective, because you also don't want to run into financial issues by delegating these sorts of interactions to an AI. And it's also important to remember to note that if customers detect a pure cost saving attempt, they would just drop the service and leave immediately, never to come back. So just don't do that. Automate, use AI, but in those scenarios, in those cases where it's actually needed and not just because you can do it. The best way, from my point of view, to implement an AI in your organization is to use AI as an enabler for your employees instead of a replacement. To let your employees focus on being human. And one of the more universal type of an interaction where most people expect human interaction is support. There is a reason for that, which we will discuss later, but this is something to keep in mind. And this also brings us to our second key finding, the digital support crisis. The gap we were talking previously between AI and human interaction that customers seek becomes critical. Most kinds of support that is delegated to an AI falls short. For example, as I told you previously, high stakes interactions post-sale are universally hated by customers if it's handled by an AI. And this conclusion also supported by the way customers make their purchasing decisions. It's not at all about prices, as some might think, and also it's not at all about quality, although quality comes first in this graph. However, the second place is actually customer service support. This reinforces the point that I made. You want to enable your frontline employees because this is where the interaction with customers happen. As a result, this is where customer feels the most emotions in regard to your company and what he would remember. And the same is true for customer support. It's also usually very emotional kind of business because it's obviously that something went wrong, so the customer is already kind of frustrated and you want to bring that down instead of fueling it further. And despite the fact that most managers realize this, only 38% of business leaders prioritize training their customer service teams and frontline teams. And that is by their own admission, which means that in practice it's very likely to be even smaller than that. No company obviously designs for bad experience, but one of the common problems with it is high variability of this experience. And reducing it is a pretty good place to start. To do that, you might want to check which of your employees' behaviors impact satisfaction levels the most, and track how your employees perform against those benchmarks. And that is also where you can use AI to help them with those specific issues. There is another important point that the report makes. It's that lower preference for digital channels revealed in the data is largely influenced by consumer expectations on the quality of these interactions. So let's say we have a customer journey where there is acquisition, then service, we provide the service or sale of goods, and then post-sale we provide customer support. So the first two steps most companies have already mastered, at least to some extent. But the last one shows the most serious issues. The drop of satisfaction is about 22%. So as consumers go from purchasing to resolving the issue online, the customer journey simply breaks down, and the satisfaction level is 22% lower. And we also should be aware that this is where frustration is building up the most quickly, and this is also where consumers could make a decision that they just don't want to deal with this company anymore in the future. However, for those that get digital support right, the rewards are also quite significant. The customers are 2.7 times more likely to return after a positive digital support experience than they would be otherwise. The highest of any channel and journey that was looked at by the authors of the report. So, while for decades the management have been hyper-focused on customer acquisition and fine-tuning the experience to maximize conversion into sales, the biggest retention and loyalty increase is actually in customer support, especially if we are talking about digital channel. Because customers love the ease and convenience of digital right up until the point where they hit a problem. So one other way you could consider to deal with it is to allow quick switch to an alternative channel, and this switch should be not only quick but seamless and without loss of context. I think most people can relate to how you explain things to one person or to a bot even, and then when it switches you to the person who can actually solve your problem, all this context is lost and you have to start to explain everything from the start. And there is no way that such an experience would not be frustrating. So the final major tension point is the evolution in how customers provide feedback. It's not especially new thing, but it's still something that you might want to keep attention at, especially with how it develops during the last few years. At this point of time, by 2024, the report shows that 34% of customers would still tell the company they had an issue and bad experience, but 66% would not. And it's one thing if they leave an online review or share their frustration on social media. You need to be prepared to track those, but that is doable, and many companies know how to do that or have products that help them do that. The real issue is the sharp increase in number of customers who won't say anything. So to counteract that, you would have to track even more carefully and cautiously an average spend, frequency of visit, maybe length of visit, and other measurements that would give you at least some idea of what is actually going on. Now that we understand these three critical tensions, let's look at the practical solutions. I'll kind of break it into three areas. The first one is AI implementation strategy. Focus on augmentation, not replacement, and understand the types of interaction that your customers are having. Match channel to task complexity. Key metric here is customer comfort level with different interactions, which you need to introduce and track. The second point, digital support enhancement. Bridge the acquisition support gap. Right now, as I said, 22%, very large difference. You need to enable seamless channel switching so that you can better serve your customers at that point of their journey. And the key metric here could be return rate after support interaction. You need to track this very, very seriously. The last one is feedback collection. Not exactly new point, but the number of customers that would not leave negative feedback but would not return either and just leave is growing, and you need to diversify your listening channels to track behavior indicators tailored to your specific business, because it's difficult for me to provide any specific advice here because I don't know your specific business, but you should be able to have an idea at what to look at. And one of the metrics that you could use is early warning signals from spending patterns. So take a moment to consider which of these areas needs the most attention in your company. And to sum it up, I think that the conclusion we could make is that the companies that will win in 2025 and those that automate the fastest and that automate all they can automate, but those that find the right balance between efficiency and human connection. And you could start by asking yourself whether this sort of interaction would make you happy, and try to estimate your specific customer's reaction to these changes. And I would also strongly suggest to have someone on your team whose responsibilities would include acting as a customer voice. Many companies already have something like that, but you need to pay more attention to this. This is all for today. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please subscribe, share and like, and join my Telegram channel. All the links are in the description. Thank you. Goodbye.